Okay, everybody. Hello, it's Brian. I'm back with another episode of The Peerless Gamer, our campaign 2, which has been a little bit of delay, to be honest, because I wanted to do a little more lore and backstory on some of the things that I wanted to do to fill out the world. And I realized that I had completely whiffed on a few things. So that, and I also, I don't know, I kind of got into my own head and was causing myself to second guess things or to overthink those items. So um started listening to some solo role play people and content creators like Man Alone and what have you, and some of the things that I learned from them is in the game, when you're solo role playing, you don't want to flesh everything out immediately, right? You want to um, keep some things, I don't say intentionally vague, but you want to keep them vague enough so that you can explore those elements later on. If where does magic come from? Well, okay, we pray to the invisible sky wizard and we get powers. Or where did those people come from? So some of the world building I did before this actually was probably a bit of overkill. The couple episodes we did where we were fleshing out where things were and whatever, that's fine, the normal setting. But like some of the mechanics and where those things come from, probably can stand a bit more fleshing out. And thankfully, one of the things that I wanted to continue with regards to like the magic of the world that we're living in here, Ecovian, is we don't have any inherent magic, so sorcerers and things are not there. So you're not going to be bloodlines or anything like that. One of the ones that I did want to do was like summoners in a Pokemon kind of setting, and so I was working on for the last 3 weeks. I got all in my head looking at anything that I could find on summoners. I looked up implementations of Pokemon 5e. I've looked at all of these things and how this would work with the modified fate that the Freeport system uses. And I ended up finding something in the Fate system toolkit called, where they have a summoner, or they have um, a magic system that deals with elementals or spirit, systems using wisps, and I think that's as, I don't want to say as close as I want to get right now, but there's definitely some um, elements of, not to use a pun, elements, but with the idea of the use of a summoner or a Pokemon type of thing, where you're throwing a ball, and Pikachu, I choose you. That's a globe, by the way, or a ball that lights up. Um, my thought process though was, why are we capturing them, and do they want to be captured, right? And so some of my thinking here with these, and definitely been thinking a lot about these things. So let me get my play screen up here. So I've started using PowerPoint to make, you know, um, using as a background for the tables and things that I'm going to use, because the other issue that I had in the previous campaign was me needing to flip through a bunch of PDFs. So I was trying to find like bare minimum number of tables that are going to be needed to do, you know, to play the game without me having to resort to going and plundering PDFs and things. And so what you see on the screen here is some of the brain droppings minus the Python that I'm learning here, wisps. And if you look in the Fate System Toolkit, they have that. It's in like chapter, I think it starts on page 107. And the basic idea is there are energy beings or things out there that can be used to cast spells, or in this case they have 5 storms, but I'm not using the 5 storms. But my thought was to use the idea of the wisp or whatever as to capture those. And it led to more questions like, why do we need to capture them? Are they bad? Are they what kind of things do they hurt? So I was looking through my list of questions here, and this was some of the stuff that I came up with. Again, trying to keep it as simple as possible without adding any additional content, context, or something we can investigate later on. Just to drop a little lore before we continue on, because I also have the questions up here and things that we have from the second episode that we're going to look through and understand. I also looked up various types of crystals and gems that can be used. Some of the items that were called out in on websites on the durability of gems and their crystalline lattices in term because you think diamond is the hardest, but it's also fairly brittle and it will break. The toughness of it is a 10 on the Mohs scale, but it is prone to being brittle or not as durable. So my thought was, instead of it just being the hardest thing known to man, which is fine, that potentially there are other crystals or other semi-precious stones that can be used in lieu of a diamond, because everybody uses diamonds, right? So things like jade and ruby and sapphire and moissanite, which um, it's very hard, so it's like a 9.5 on the Mohs scale out of 10, but it's also very tough, right? I think moissanite's also in the area of like a cubic zirconia or something like that. And so, all of the major, I would say, major jewel types are represented on this page. So the idea is, instead of a Pokeball, like the Pokeball, that I was going to throw, we instead have the wisps or the creatures or whatever it is that we're going to capture will be in gems, and they have to be specially formatted. So the gems that Nathan has, or the crystals that Nathan has, are quartz in this case. So down here, which is a fairly decent, but it's a more standardized quartz. So I'm gonna try to stay out of my own head here. But my thought was, because I watched, everybody's watched Pokemon, right? Or Digimon or whatever it is they have. There has to be a reason that Squirtle wants to be captured, right? Why does Squirtle want to be captured? Why does Squirtle want to be trained? A wild Pokemon, you've got Ash and them just running around throwing balls at critters and capturing them, and it's like, does that critter want to be captured? So I kind of wanted to turn that on its head and instead make it so that maybe and kind of bring in the whole Monster Hunter kind of thing. We're going to have massive kaiju or whatever, but I'm thinking, what if the wisps are a chaotic, corrupting influence into creatures? Um, Maybe not necessarily sentient creatures. Maybe they're um, animals and beasts of all across the multiverse. In this case, remnants left over from the ascendants that the War of the Words, I think I talked about. The idea is the wisps are energy that corrupt and mutate life, and they're prolific. And if they're not collected or controlled, so the idea would be, um, and to go back to Pokemon, let's say Pikachu in this case is a mouse that gets infected with a wisp that gives him the ability to and the energy can come from any place. And so that, to kind of align with how Pokemon things do, you can say, well, there's different energy types, right? So there's electric, there's ice, there's all those kinds of things. So the different energy types could be like the different types of Pokemon that exist there. And so we have to help these creatures in their chaotic state. So monster hunters will go out, and I'm thinking that what happens is, so imagine, if you will, a group of people going out to fight a dread beast, like a dire wolf or something like that. But the dire wolf is mutate and it's awful and whatever, and they've managed to weaken it to the point where they can capture it in a gem. And then what they do is, let me see what I say. Yeah, the wisp creeps life, and it also gives whatever it's infected an awakened state. So it realizes, it gains intelligence from the chaos of the energy itself. So, as we've seen, some of the Pokemon are mostly, somewhat intelligent, right? They all kind of understand. They might, do tactics. They take orders, right? So they're a little bit smarter than a dog in this case. And so the capture crystals, which would be the crystals, I'm thinking like in the same vein as if you've ever watched Ghostbusters when they're capturing the ghosts and they open up the trap and there's this ball of, this cone of light that comes out that captures or collects the ghost and contains them inside of that. So the containment, the little containment chamber that they use when they're capturing the ghosts would be very similar to the crystal that gets activated by the person who controls it. And yeah, obviously you can only collect maybe one creature per crystal or something like that. Um, but the other thing would be like, well, if you can separate the wisp energy from the creature, then maybe the creature can't survive um, with the wisp energy, but the wisp energy would like overwhelm the Akovian and the multiverse. So it has to be gotten rid of. It has to be dissipated. It has to be used in this case so that it doesn't overwhelm things. So it's there's almost there'd be a business for this, right? You would have thousands and thousands of you would have monster hunters going out to collect wisp energy that is raw. So I mean, you're going to have wisp energy in storms, or you're going to have wisp energy in um, they don't always possess things. So you can collect the energy in the crystals, or you collect the wisp character, the mutated characters, and the idea is the crystal will um, keep the energy of that creature under control until such a time as um, we can get rid of that, or we'll you know be able to separate that energy from that creature. And um, when you do that, then maybe that creature can survive without the crystal, or maybe it's bound to that crystal forever because of reasons. And that's something that we can look at. But my thought with the lore was that the last 50 years, or we didn't used to have this problem, but after the war of words had ended and everything kind of got back to normal, there had been reports of large creatures, mutated creatures, rampaging through countrysides, through villages, and whatever. And it started, people realized that they needed a force, if you will, or a group of adventurers or people to go and take care of these creatures. And it's taken a good, I would say, 4 or 5 years for and maybe Nathan has somebody in his family tree that was a monster hunter at one time, so he's aware of how this works. The exploits of some of these people are sung in tales by bards in the local taverns and stuff about how they defeated the great beast of Williock or whatever. um, so the idea would be that the monster hunters keep the wisp population, or the mutated population, under control. Doesn't mean that it doesn't continue to happen, because the chaotic energy is prolific. Um, Maybe after a certain point, when the mutated creature has gained enough, maybe instead of a dire wolf, it's now a dread wolf. So this thing's, whatever. Maybe at some point, um, its actions, or its um, it breeds kind of like the fungi from Last of Us. It's like at some point the cordyceps, they get to a point and it's like they take the creature and they make it so that it gets eaten or whatever. In this case, maybe the chaotic energy, maybe there's an explosion of chaotic energy, and it creates new versions of itself. So if you don't get to the beast in time, then it causes more of the wisps to form. So my that was my thinking on how some of this works. But you can also collect wisp energy to do things like storing. Um, you can use mana crystals, like regular crystals, to store wisp energy, which then can be turned into um, uh, uh, enchanting items. Or if you set the crystal inside of an item, it can be used to enchant and power things. It can be used as a focus to enhance your own magic spells if you have them. There are benefits to using that mana, or that the wisp energy in this case. But it does cost you your own to cast the spell, but you can add effects or you can do whatever. So again, I want to keep that vague, but because we can take that as many directions as we want, right? As a side, I'm dealing with a lot of anxiety right now, because I felt this when I started the first campaign, and it took me a little bit to get over that. And um, I am wanting to do this for fun, just really cognizant of things that I'm saying and doing, and just stick with me, and we will get to a point where we're actually playing the game. So I want to go back to what happened or last session. Nathan had discovered in his travels, after he had been jumped, from the person who had the book. He had the book; it was taken from him. And actually, I also went back through and checked out the Freeport map that is available in the Freeport Companion. So my idea was, so where you see the blue dot here on the left hand corner is where the courtyard that Nathan was jumped, and we found out with Blaze's help, in the brain, in the recreation of the event, somebody was running across the tops of the buildings stalking Nathan. Nathan apparently missed that for some reason, and there could be good reason for that. Was jumped, mugged, book was taken. They took off, right? And so this is the Merchant District, very popular place, very busy. Uh, a lot of activity going on that time of day. The tavern, the base of operations for the Thieves Guild, is this red dot here in the Eastern District of Freeport. Now, I know the world Ecovian is pretty much the upside down version of Earth, and backwards. So you have to assume that this is out towards the ocean, right? This is out towards the ocean. It's from this is like east. So I'd flip it, but the landscapeness of it doesn't work in PowerPoint. Most of the city would be gone. So you have to just use your theater of the mind and know that this is like west, and this would be east, and this is north. That way is north, and that way is south. Uh, so as we progress, things will get a little different, a little easier. But just to give you an idea, it's pretty much Earth minus the um, yeah, minus the other real countries and cities and such. So as you see, it's pretty, the handoff was a pretty decent distance from the hideout. Whether that was by design, I don't know. Uh, it does take Nathan a good bit to get back to that spot, which is probably one of the reasons they wanted to make sure that he couldn't be tracked back, because there's a lot of small little areas where he could hide and a lot of hidey holes. He's going through the docks, he's going through the warehouse district, he's going parts of the old city potentially. I mean, if he took the most direct route, he'd be going through the old city. and coming back through the Eastern District. Um, it's really close to Scurvy Town and Blood Salt, which, if you follow along the Freeport lore, this is where the orcs and the goblins live. This is where they hang out, and this is the less savory part of town. Most humans or dwarves would probably not be caught dead there. Well, they would be caught there, but they'd probably be dead, right? We are here, and so Nathan is, he lives around this area because, his world revolves around Blaze and the Thieves Guild. Maybe he does a little, maybe he does a little fence work in the old city or the Eastern District, and definitely in the Merchants District. He rarely gets up to the Temple District because stealing in the Temple District tends to make not just the priests mad, but maybe the people that they look at, the ascendants or what have you. Some of them don't have an organized religion, but some of them also don't like to have their stuff stolen. So, uh, yeah. So I mean, there's a lot of good information here, but so we have a couple of questions that we're going to answer. So the last episode, Blaze had suggested. Blaze said they're going to go and talk to the buyer. Nathan also thought about maybe going and finding out what was in the book, because Blaze doesn't know what's in the book. Bexley is Nathan's boss for all intents and purposes in the hierarchy. So it goes like, Nathan, Bexley, Bexley's boss, which I don't think I gave him a name or gave them a name, and then one or two levels above, and then Blaze in this case. We don't know what Blaze is exactly. Blaze has some sort of psionic powers and an alligator familiar and can read minds. And Blaze read the mind of Nathan because at one point we found out that, well, during the kerfuffle that Nathan was trying to talk to Blaze, there was a commotion outside. A wagon being carrying some items dropped 5 crystals. And these were the crystals that made me go, well, what am I going to do with these crystals? They're the most expensive crystals, right? And I had the idea that these crystals were going to be Pokemon crystals for all intents and purposes, or mana crystals. So he has 5 of them, but during Blaze's communication, because Nathan felt like he needed to give something back to the guild, he told Bexley about the crystals. Bexley suggested Nathan tell Blaze about the crystals, and Nathan tried to lie about how many crystals he had found, with the idea that he didn't want to give them all to Blaze. He's not stupid, but he's an entrepreneur, right? He's trying to make his own way. Blaze took one of the crystals. Now, obviously, Blaze is going to take the best crystal. So um, there's something in that crystal, whether it be a bunch of wisp energy or a creature or something, but that is the best crystal. So we have to remember that for future episodes in case that comes to fruition or that is a need or there's something there. So um, just in case. But so, you know, Nathan's got 4 crystals. We can figure out what's in them. And once we, decide how we want to do. So one of the things that I wanted to ask, and so one of the things I wanted to ask was how, of the 4 crystals, how many actually had, what were the crystals, right? So the problem is Nathan doesn't have the ability to review them. So he will need to take them to somebody who can. And my thought is he has a relationship with somebody that he's fenced items with before, or he will be able to identify those, but it can't be right now because Blaze has told him and Bexley that they need to go and find the buyer. And so that is kind of where we're at right now with regards to the status of the game. Uh, so the other things that I asked questions about, because listening to Man Alone and all the other ones, was there's some additional like areas that you can move into, right? The book was stolen by somebody who knew where Nathan was going to be and when. The buyer doesn't have the book, or at least says they don't have the book. So who has the book? Who knew Nathan was going to be where he was going to be when he was going to be? Who is Blaze, right? Nathan's naturally curious. Who or what is Blaze? Has a beast of its own. So Blaze obviously is somebody who can collect those crystals. May have one or more of those crystals already that hold one of these creatures. It's an alligator, and it seemed to be semi-sentient and understand him. The carriage driver lost these crystals. Who was he going to deliver them to? Who was going to take those? Was the carriage driver going to sell them? If they're, who did he get them from? So there's some investigative things that we can do there. Um, that leads us in many directions that we can have, and to including vignettes. So my thought was to have a vignette about the uh, carriage driver, because the carriage driver, uh, okay. So let me ask that question. I'm going to roll my 2 die 10, and I'm going to ask the yes or no question. I'm going to ask, does the carriage driver who lost suffer any harmful effects from that? And my thought was, I'm going to say it's very likely. So I'm going to say 75 or lower. Yes, otherwise no. And in my terms and ill effects is going to be like, we have a two 100 D100 rolls. So I'm going to roll for the action oracle first, and that's this one right here. That's this table right here, where it starts with scheme and goes to summon. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll D100. So we have a 23. 23, so manipulate, okay? And then on the theme table, which is this one here, which starts with risk and supply, ends with supply, 57. So we have a 57. So manipulate blood. Okay. So in this case, I don't want blood to be actually like literal blood. And so my thought was blood is going to be relatives or kindred people or like people. So my thought was that, so the carriage drivers had a very bad day. His cart broke down. Uh, he is had a long day. It's long travel from the other cities. He is um, fairly certain that he's lost some things, but he didn't have time to check the contents of the wagon before he was told to move along by the local guard, because the local guard is not there to protect him. They're there to protect the city. And it was enough of a commotion that they were like, just get your wheel and your axle back and repair, in best as you can, and move along. And carriage driver was like, well, but I need to check things, and they're like, yeah, no, we can't stop right now. You're gonna have to continue on. You're uh, causing a traffic jam. You know, so the carriage driver moves along, heads back to urban location. Yeah, let's do an urban location. This is another one of those tools or tables that we have available to us. And actually, I'm going to just hide this for now. There we go. That'll make it a little easier for me to manipulate the tables. All right, so we're going to, I think I'm going to roll 2 die 20. So I've got my nice fat die 20 here from Flying Horse Duck Dice. And I'm going to roll, okay, 15. Okay, tannery. Okay, so that's either the tannery or we're going to do the slum locations, because I just want to make sure we've got all of our ducks in a row here. 11. So we have 11. A hidden opulent lair. Okay. I kind of like the second one better. In a slum location. All right, so carriage driver continues down the road. Maybe he heads into, let's see. So the attack happened near here, right? So this may be this road. I'm imagining it's this road here that um, was coming down, right? So you see, we're heading towards, let me see, I can make this a little bigger. Maybe he was heading down this road right here, and the kerfuffle started as he was making his way around this corner. As you can see, once you get to the docks, things start looking kind of ugly and kind of weird. So maybe he was heading towards a warehouse, or maybe whatever number 9 is. I don't know number 9. Broken mug. Okay, it's a tavern, but for these purposes, let's just say it's a warehouse, right? So number 9 is going to go here. The other thing is you get some nice drawing examples here that you can use. So he's heading in this direction. He makes it down here. It's starting to get kind of seedy, kind of, not a lot of foot traffic because this is fairly, look, it's fairly close together here. But he heads into the warehouse, and um, it's run down. It looks kind of crappy. It looks somewhat dilapidated, like it's not been used in a long time. There may be one or two people around looking kind of shifty, uh, maybe hired thugs or something like that. Something, they act like they're minding their own business, but the carriage guy in his head knows what's going on. Goes in. Uh, Maybe there's more than one cart there. Maybe there's several carts inside this warehouse. Some of them are a little older than the others, and he goes in and he shuts the door as he's going in because the people who are acting like they're not paying attention notice what's going on. So he comes in, shuts the door. I would say he starts looking through his cart, his wagon, if you will, of things, right? And he is a legitimate businessman, like most legitimate businessmen. It was just unfortunate that his wagon busted like it did. He is going through the inventory that he knows he has, and then he notices. Wait a minute. Wait. I don't want to leave this up to me because I'm going to make this as easy as possible for me. So I'm going to, let me see. So does he know what exactly is missing in his carriage? I am going to say that as a person of his stature, he is a legitimate businessman. He would know everything that he has on his cart. So I'm going to say, sure thing. So it's going to be 90 or 10. 0-4. He is solid. Like, it is 100%. Like, he knows every bolt, every screw. He knows where every hidden compartment is in his wagon. What he notices is that one of the compartments, the hidden compartments in his carriage, is slightly ajar. And when he notices this, he immediately goes and he opens it up and he's like, it's empty. And he's like, oh no, 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 no. And he starts looking in all of his secret compartments because he, he handles some things that are not necessarily um, legal, legitimate, or he carries things of great value, like the gems that Nathan borrowed. And so he looks through the hand. Let's roll. Let's say he's got 2d6. Let's see how many secret compartments he's got. Oh, he's got 8 compartments. Uh, One of them is on the same side as where the jewels were. Maybe he left those crystals, those jewels in another thing. So he goes and looks. No, not there. Checks all of the place. He even checks, because there were some legitimate people helping him put things back in his carriage. He uh, checks everything and they're gone. So he's like, who the hell was helping me? And then he remembers. Does he remember Nathan? I think what I need to do is I need to roll. I need to roll a die 10 to see how many people were probably helping him. Let's do a d6. Okay, so there were two people that came out and helped him in addition to Nathan. So I'm going to say he's got a 33% chance of remembering who Nathan was. So in this case, I'm going to say it is. I'm going to go. I'm going to go 50-50 on this. He got a 37. So yes, he remembers Nathan. And does he remember where Nathan went after he helped him? Given that he remembers Nathan, maybe he remembers Nathan, but there's a lesser chance that he actually followed where Nathan went. You know, we do know that Nathan made his sleight of hand roll, if at all possible. So, did he see where Nathan took off to? I want to say he was distracted. He was told by the local guard to, move along, causing, a block in the traffic and whatever. His cart was back up and running. He didn't expect the hidden compartment to, break open. So I'm going to say it was unlikely that he had that much wherewithal to realize where he was going or where everybody was going. He just, maybe it was super unlucky. So I'm going to say 40% chance. 58. Okay. So he remembers Nathan. He remembers where the accident happened, but he doesn't know where Nathan took off to. Question is, does he believe Nathan might have taken the crystals? I think that's probably the question I should have asked at the beginning. Uh, does he believe Nathan took those crystals? I'm going to say, it's a 1 in 3 chance, right? Or 2 in 6 chance that he does. So that would be, if you go 2 and 6, so that's 35% chance. I'm gonna say unlikely, 40%. So 40% or lower means that he is going to consider Nathan a person of interest and is going to investigate where maybe Nathan could be. 78. Okay, so he doesn't consider Nathan to be the person that uh, took the crystals. So maybe it was one of the other two people. Um, and maybe he has those people in mind. Um, maybe maybe he will. Well, that's an interesting conundrum too. Um, but anyway, so as he's starting to sweat, because these are very valuable, you have no idea. The engraving of the runes to be able to capture wisp energy and to capture the creatures that he's got. So there were 5 crystals that he knows about. No. So I'm going to retcon something a little bit. Not all the crystals are gone. So when he went and looked in the thing that was a jar, maybe 5 of them got away. Maybe he's got like he's got 2 left. Um, uh, I want to roll D100 just to see how nice they are. So 100 is like, you know, kind of like the one Blaze took. So there's a bunch of them, but maybe the one Blaze took is like a, let's say 90, 95, kind of thing. We'll see how the other 2 are. Okay, it's a 32, so it's not so good. And then 63. Okay, so they're not as good as the ones that were there. So I have he is able to appraise those, and he finds that yeah, those aren't even the best ones. All the good ones were taken, and so maybe what I'll do is offline I'll figure out you know which ones did Nathan get and what's the quality of those, right? And then that'll kind of give us an idea of you know is it a completely empty crystal? Is it a mana crystal? Have they been engraved? Do they carry wisp energy? Do they carry creatures inside of them? Um, other capabilities. So that'll be something I need to look at with regard to, you know, what the wisps and creatures and things are. Um, what was the purpose of the crystals, right? And so I guess that's the other question, right? So anyway, back to manipulate blood in this case. So looking through his wagon for about the last 10 minutes, and all of a sudden you hear a crack or like, and what you see is the warehouse is long and thin, like rectangular. I would say it's probably maybe, 40 feet wide, 100, 200 feet long. You know, it's almost like there's a stable or something. He's taking care of the horses and everything, but um, all of a sudden, the floor opens up into a ramp, and uh, there's a light down there, and you hear what sounds like music, and you see a shadow, somebody coming up the ramp. This is a huge being, huge, like hulking, like, think the Incredible Hulk, but he's bigger, right? Muscles on muscles on muscles. Carriage driver, which I'm gonna have to give him a name, I guess, because he might be around for a while, is sweating, and because I'm gonna have to give this guy a name too, right? Or this person a name. He says Harold. So in this case, you hear the carriage driver's name is Harold. It's a woman's voice. Harold says, "Hello, honey. How are you doing? My darling Dolly." Harold and Dolly. Maybe she's a Tauran. Maybe she's a Tauran. And if you remember from our world building exercises, she would be um, a bull, or not a bull in this case, but a bovine type creature. Harold is not a bovine type creature, so love finds a way. He knows that he's in trouble. Who's he in trouble with? Yes, I would say he's going to be in trouble with her. Um, so he's going to need to figure out a way to smooth things over, to manipulate blood. He says, "Yeah, it's been a long day, honey. Looking forward to some of your lamb stew." Obviously, he's not going to have beef stew, right? And she's like, "Have you brought me any pretties?" And he says, I have a couple," because maybe she doesn't isn't aware of what's going on. So he finds the crystals for her and gives them to her. Does he have a tell? It's like, this is all I was able to get. I'm gonna find out. Does she recognize? Let's assume that they've been married for a while or been together for a while. Yeah, I'm gonna say 75% or less. 32. Okay, so she looks at him and she sees him sweating. He's tired, but the way he said, way he gave her the crystals, she says, "Something's wrong. What's wrong?" And he's like, "No, no, no, there's nothing wrong. Um, just a long day, and I'm just looking forward to having something nice to eat and to get back to, a lot of good work." And Dolly says, "Okay, um, come on in. We're, we're just about to sit down to dinner." And they walk down the ramp, and uh, you see the couple of folks from outside the warehouse that were acting like they weren't paying attention. They're in the basement of this place, and it's not just a basement. It's like all the way down. It's like super opulent looking place. I'm imagining there's tables, very much like how the secret room for the Thieves Guild was, but it is it's different. It's lit up, it's nice, there's beds, there might be a flag. I want to say it's a headquarters of some organization, and I don't know what it is yet. So they spend their night talking and talking about the adventure. Harold has been off somewhere, and that's neither here nor there. Maybe that'll come back and bite us in the end. We'll talk about that. Harold has had a few to drink, and what I'm wondering is if he's going to mention the real issue. So I'm going to say this has been weighing on him. he is going to, I want to say, it's going to be, I want to say 40%. Okay, 32. So at the end of the night, as they're heading to bed, Harold tells Dolly, I wasn't completely truthful with you. Something did happen on the way back just before I got to the warehouse or to home, just before I got home. The two crystals I gave you, there were actually several more, but they were lost. His wife is upset. She says, well, we're going to have to get those back. We can't, they can't just be out all over the place. We don't know what's going to happen if those are in the wrong hands. Do you know who took them? And he describes the three people that helped him with the wagon. And I'm wondering if she would know who that is. My thinking is, okay, so I'm going to make this a fairly hard roll, but maybe the Thieves Guild, it depends on how well the Thieves Guild advertise where they're headquartered. My thought was that's why I said it's going to be a very difficult roll. So I'm going to say like 30 or lower, and how well known Nathan is. So Harold explains to Dolly, he says, "Oh yeah, there was three people. They were helping me put things, we fix the wagon and put things back in. I didn't see where they went to, but I can describe." He describes Nathan because that's the one he really, really remembers. I rolled a one. I was actually rolling a d6. I was like, could he, mention all three? Because if he'd rolled a six, it would have been all three. But he mentions Nathan, and I'm going to see if I rolled a 90. So she does not recognize that person. She's a bit savvy. So what I'm going to say is because it happened in proximity to where the tavern is, because of the general patterns in the area, she makes a mental note to put a couple of the watchers of the warehouse on that intersection looking for somebody who looks like Nathan. So that's another thing we're going to have to remember. All right, so Dolly has a description of Nathan and will have watchers at the site. The wagon broke down for the next few days to see if they can find, because the crystals in the wrong hands could be bad, right? Um, and they're very expensive. I mean, we're talking about like tens of thousands of gold in this case. Uh, these were a king's ransom, basically, just with what was in them and the crystals themselves, right? So, and now we know that Nathan doesn't have all of them, which is going to cause some issues. So, remove ourselves from that and go back to Nathan and Bexley.